Hi, welcome to Lashback, everyone. I'm Natalyan.
And I'm Phoebe. Today we're going to be talking about all the silly things people do and human behaviour. So, Nat, introduce us.
Okay, yeah, so this is a topic that's quite close to my heart. I always seem to talk about this with one of my best friends back in London. So I just did my usual is to just quickly Google it. And because I always wonder why we do the same things as human beings, even in different countries, or even people you don't know seem to do it. I mean, there's been great sketches out there, like Michael McIntyre does a great one about Brits on holiday. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, we all do that, right? So what I did when I Googled it, it said 93% predictable humans. So human behavior is predictable to some extent. A group of Northeastern University network scientists found that human behavior is 93% predictable, even though each person is unique. So, and I tend to agree
Isn't
with
it?
that. So, what do we mean by funny things that we do? You like, over to you, Phoebe. Is there something that
Well,
you see people doing that you do yourself that's hilarious?
I think some of that's cultural. Like if you're in England,
Yeah.
it's talking about the weather. I used to work in a pub, and literally everybody that walks in would go, "Oh, it's cold today," or "Oh, it's boiling today, isn't it?" I actually had a colleague who had a T-shirt that he'd wear in the winter that said, "I know it's cold." Because they'd be like, everybody says the
Yeah.
same thing. So there's kind of like cultural norms.
Yeah.
And then, of course, our neurology, we are all completely unique. And they say our brains are as unique as our fingerprints. But then at the same time, the mechanics of how we work as people, psychology, physiology, all of that stuff is the same. We are the same. Blood runs in our veins. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there is that. Why do we do that? Women that compliment each other on their clothes and go, "Oh, thanks, yeah, £3 charity shop." Every time, every person I know, if I compliment them on their clothes, will say, "Yes, thank you. This is where I got it. This is
That's
how much it
definitely.
cost." What about you?
That's definitely a British thing. That's definitely a British thing because I lived in Australia, as you know, for like 6 to 7 years, and I realised that it was Australians didn't tend to do that. So like you could have a Brit and you compliment them on their dress, for example, as you just said, and oh that's such a nice dress, £5 down the market. £5 down the market. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you didn't need to tell me that. Whereas like maybe some people or maybe even some cultures or some, classes of people may want to say that, oh, it was £500 from Gucci but we're so proud of a bargain. Which is a nice thing, but that's definitely a British thing. I don't tend to hear people, and especially from my hometown in East London, that is definitely we are so proud to have found something for next to nothing. It's just in our DNA, I think. But going to the weather, you know, even in America where I live now, you get into the taxi, you order an Uber, you order a taxi, and you say, "So how's your day been?" "It's a bit cold, isn't it?" And then you hope that the taxi driver is going to actually come back with something. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But my friend's a taxi driver and he says that he's so sick of hearing that. So we need to think of something else to say to taxi drivers.
How are
But
you?
weather's definitely a Brit thing as well.
Well, there's a lot to talk
Yeah,
about.
how are you? How's your day been?
Yeah,
Yeah. But they probably
yeah,
get sick of it, to be honest. If I was a taxi driver, sometimes I'd just want to be quiet, you know.
yeah. There's,
But weather is going back to the weather again. Weather's definitely a Brit thing where we moan about the hot, we moan about the cold. I mean, when are we happy, right?
well, I mean, when the sun shines, and that's not very often.
Yeah,
Um, it's interesting, isn't
I
it?
don't agree. I don't agree. That's
There are there are like like the if everyone's watching the same TV show and they'll work in the same office or whatever, and then that's what you talk about on a Monday morning, or back from the Christmas break, how was your Christmas break? And everyone says Happy New Year, or we've got those social norms, and I suppose that's in a way how we endeavour to connect and to start conversation.
yes,
I'm really, really rubbish at small talk. I'm very, very bad at it. But it does play quite an important role, doesn't it? And I suppose predictability
definitely.
is safety, isn't it? If you know how things are going to behave and react. So there's a way of going, oh, here's our culture, and here's a question or a theme of topic of conversation that's got a safety that I know someone's going to be able to talk about it. Rather than going straight in there saying, "Oh, good morning, yeah, how's your grief today?" Don't ask questions like that and feel very safe.
Yeah,
How's your
yeah, well,
heart health?
exactly. Well, it's like when someone asks you if you're how are you, and you could be not okay. You tend to not say that you're not okay. And in fact, I've had people say to me I'm not okay before that I don't really know, and I found that really uncomfortable because I don't know you enough for you to tell me that. So,
But I also don't
it's
want
a
to lie.
balance. I think it is a balance of yeah, yeah, you don't want to lie, but if you say that, then it's a lot of people say, "How are you?" not to have a full-blown 4-hour conversation. It's just, you know, semantics or politeness. And talking about politeness, and again, this is definitely cultural as well. People try to please people even if they don't know the answer. And one bugbear of mine is directions.
Ah,
Directions. So you're walking down the street, and obviously we have our maps and Google Maps and that now, but people still do it. So it was worse before, say, 90s, before your iPhones and everything. But you ask someone for directions. And I find myself being a little bit rude now because the instant I see in their eyes that they don't know the answer, but they start to waffle and give me some kind of answer to try and people please, I'm like, if you don't know, that's fine. Or if you're going into a shop, for example, and you're like, excuse me, do you know where, the sugar is? And they're like, it's fine, thank you,
yeah,
goodbye.
totally.
Which is quite rude, really. I think people tend to make up directions, and they also. This is something that I've talked about with many of my friends. Obviously, I have really interesting conversations. When you're giving directions, you highlight things in the directions that are absolutely unnecessary, which then confuse the situation and make it harder to remember. So I was in a hotel recently with my American friend, and we was in the hotel bar, and I wanted to go to the toilet, which was in the lobby. She proceeded to tell me where the toilets were by describing where the lifts were, where the shop was, where the entrance was, where those doors were. And the toilets were just there. So by that point, I walked out and people pleasing, I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm like, I've already started thinking about something else. And they were just there. Why didn't you tell me they were just there? You don't
Point.
need to highlight when you're going down the street. Do a left and then see that big tree. Ignore that tree. Ignore that red telephone box. Ignore that person with the dog and just do a right. You could have
Yeah.
just said left and right, and that's definitely something people do. So anyone watching this episode, be aware of that because you're going to start seeing that more now.
I see. I noticed that as well. It's interesting. Like, see that quite a lot. And you ask a question about how to do something, and somebody tells you a lot of story in order to answer the question of how, rather than cutting to the chase of this is how. So it's like, how do I get to the local shop? Well, you have to go down the road and past the pub, which burnt down, but then they rebuilt it, and it's a really nice landlord now there. And then you go past the coffee shop. They do a really good cinnamon bun, by the way, but not open on a Saturday morning until 11. And then you're like, just it's the first right, mate. But you get that in organisations as well. New people come and said, "Oh, who do I speak to about, I don't know, buying, doing my expenses, or how do I speak to someone about this new project piece of work?" So, well, it's this person in that team, but you've got to be careful with that team because a year ago they did this, and 2 years ago they did that, and now they're like this. And if you'd go, just and it's interesting the stories we tell ourselves, and then those stories come out and how we tell other people things, and it does ultimately get in the way of
Yeah,
conciseness,
strangers.
clarity, conciseness, and
Yeah,
clarity.
clarity, clarity. And I'm very, this about me, and I've been told this in relationships actually, that I'm so literal that it's ridiculous and somewhat annoying. But I like literal. And I've also realised living in different countries, especially America, that I've been told that Brits use the word literal or literally a lot. And I've now been aware of it. So since I was, as you know, I went back for Christmas and New Year. Seems like years ago now. But people say literally all of the time, and I am actually very literal. So I like succinct. When I've got somewhere to be or something to do, I just want A B C, not A F Z B D A, C, which
They
is what
want
tends
one.
to happen. And as you said, it's because people have stories. People have stories, and then they tell strangers about those stories. And then by that point, you've lost. And if someone gives you directions and there's more than, say, 2 or 3 lefts or rights, you know that person doesn't have a clue. You haven't remembered that. But again, as a polite Brit, as a human being that wants to people please, I'm still doing this, but I'm thinking about,
Thinking
Monday or
this.
something, or what I've got to do next week, because I've already forgotten what, because the third left, I'm done,
Yeah.
So then you've got to ask somebody else, and
I
then you
was in
have
a
to go through it
Starbucks
again.
in I was in a Starbucks in Tottenham Court Road the other day. I work down that way, and you've got it's lunchtime. Good number of people behind the counter, all quite young. I'm guessing students, not originally from London. And this very much older lady came in and asked where the Barclays Bank was. I was told there was one around here. Firstly, that's a bit of an anomaly in this day and age, somebody looking for a branch of a bank rather than doing it online. But she was quite senior, this
If
woman.
there is one, yeah.
Exactly. She was quite senior, and she'd asked people behind. Firstly, I was interested, why are you asking these obviously international students that have probably lived in this city for 5 minutes and only know their commute to this place of work? Why are you asking them? So I attempted to help her by looking on Google Maps. I thought, well, this is me being helpful. I'm gonna like, oh, let me see if it's on Google Maps. And of course, where we were in the building, the Google wasn't loading. And I just said to her, I went, best bet is it's up that way because that becomes more kind of residential. Really sorry. And that's me not people pleasing, but people pleasing. It's like people pleasing with honesty. Like I attempted to help because it's
Yeah,
the thought that counts, but actually I'm just going to apologize when I can't, rather
yeah,
than
I know.
try and
And
fix it.
it's funny, you've just triggered a memory. You've just triggered a memory of mine, actually. And when I was back in England, what, a year or so ago, and as you know, I've got a place on the coast in Kent, and I was pretty new to the area. I've only had a place there for a year or so, and I'm not there a lot. And I was walking down the street, and somebody asked me for directions to a specific road, and I somehow knew that road, or at least thought I did. And I proceeded to give them as succinct directions as possible, the way that I like to receive them, and then I realised when I walked away that I'd got streets mixed
Mixed
up
up.
and I'd sent them completely in the wrong
I've done that
direction. I didn't
before.
stop thinking about that all day. That's an issue. That's an issue. And I tried to find them and I couldn't find them. And I thought, oh no, I've literally sent them the complete opposite direction, and no word of a lie. I was concerned about that for the rest of the day. I don't know
I've
whether
done
that
that
makes me a
before.
nutcase or a very nice people.
I've done that before. I've run off after
Horrible.
someone and gone, no, 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 sorry, I was wrong, I was wrong, I was wrong. Or had that similar thing of thinking about, oh God, I sent them to the wrong direction. I hope they figured it out. Oh, I really didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, I don't think this person did. They were in a different area completely by the time I gave them the directions.
I mean, you could get
So
philosophical
it's
about
it's
that, couldn't
it's
you?
these things.
You could get
Yeah,
philosophical about that
definitely.
and be
And I think,
like, well, if that's you do you remember I lost that necklace? We were out and I lost a necklace.
yeah,
I'd not
did you
owned it
find
very
that?
long. Never. I dropped it. Must have come off me when we were walking up the road. And I just kind of was
Remember
chalked
that
that up
vaguely?
to, I came to, that was a chalked that up to, well, that somebody else is going to find that necklace, and that's the necklace's story. So like you've sent somebody off down the wrong road. Maybe they've met the love of their life or seen that advert for that job that they
I
wanted,
was just
or
about to say that.
universe provides. It's
Oh, I like
just a
that.
moment in somebody
I
else's
like that.
story.
That's such a good way of looking at it. Oh,
Yeah.
Phoebe, that's such a good way of looking at it. That's helped my trauma of that.
Guilt relieved.
Guilt. Yeah. Well, yeah, I was
And when it's not
thinking maybe they did find the love of their life.
maybe then certainly when it's not intentional, you're not intentionally putting somebody off the path. Maybe there's that, and I'm getting a
Yeah.
bit hippie woo woo here,
Yeah.
but maybe there is that thing that you are the channel for a message that they needed to go in a different direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe.
That's very, very hippie. Yeah. Very. But I like it. I like it. That's
It's
actually
very
cool.
hippie.
I'm going to remember that, and
Yeah.
I think the listeners will remember that as well.
If
So
they
I think
listen this
we're.
far.
I wanted to just touch upon. I wanted to touch upon a. It's the same topic, obviously, like what humans do, but I also wanted to bring up this because I had a really interesting conversation with a friend the other day. Obviously, my conversations are very deep. Statements that your parents said to you growing up, because I was talking to my friend and I heard my friend, I can't remember what it was, say something to their child which was the same, of like, don't make that face because if the wind changes, it's going to stay like that. And they said that, and I thought, wow, do people still say that? And there must be changes, and I haven't picked up on those changes. So I think we could talk about this in another episode because we don't have long left. But statements growing up like money doesn't grow on trees, or if
Oh,
you didn't eat your dinner around the table on a Sunday. And my dad used to say, there's starving people, kids in the in the world.
yeah, so
And I'm like, but I
you eat
can't
that.
eat anymore.
I used to be told,
Yeah.
eat the crusts of the bread because then my hair would curl.
See, I never heard that one, and obviously
Yeah,
I
well,
didn't eat,
look,
and
your
I don't
hair's
eat crust.
clearly
Maybe it's
not. No,
true. Maybe,
clearly not.
yeah.
I
That's
did.
it. I never heard that one.
No, and the other
Look,
one, the
you've
other one is,
proved the statement.
well, it's not curly, it's wavy. Maybe I didn't eat enough crusts. And then it's total poppycock.
Yeah,
Poppycock. That's the
that's
word I've not used in about 20 years. Um, yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Like if the wind will
poppycock.
change. There's that thing again about culture, and things get passed down to us. I know when I first started teaching yoga, I've obviously been going to yoga for a long time before I then learned how to teach, and in the realness of
Remember
a
that.
of an actual class, things coming out of my mouth, me going, oh my God, that's what my teacher says all the time. Just parroting kind of things that I'd taken in, and therefore that's the way I describe it. And I think there is that thing about, again, it's our neurology and our physiology and our somatic awareness that we remember more than we consciously can remember. And so in those moments of
Oh, definitely.
goodness sake, how do I get my kid to finish their meal? Just going to parrot what I was told when I was younger, and it kind of becomes a
Yeah, when I was
cycle.
looking into this as well, there was. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And when I was looking into this, there was like articles on people that have realised they are their parents, and things. But I think an interesting point that I wanted to just kind of round off with as well is the differences in society and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Because there's ones here, I've got one listed here, like stop crying before I give you something to cry about. Our
And see,
parents used
that's
to
not
always say
true.
that, and I don't think people say that. Yeah, yeah. But
Kind of
I never
abusive.
got hit or anything. But that's yeah, it is kind of abusive, but
Yeah.
it's also there's a kind of place for it and a memory for it that you didn't like. For example, that's a little bit comparable to the fact that I can't imagine having a kid now and them going out at 9 a.m. and then coming back when the streetlights turn off and not hearing from them all day. They could be kidnapped and then the kidnappers had like an 8 hour head start. Like the thought of that horrifies me, but that's what used to happen with us. So it's complete differences, isn't it? And that's, technology, society, growth, good, bad, indifferent, and we're going to have an episode on technology and social media. But I just think it's interesting how you don't say the same things,
No, I mean,
but you do say the same things as well.
yeah, well, we've got different devices to do the same thing. I remember my friend Liz, who I talk about a lot, and she's moved to the States. She she's a real stickler for punctuation, not punctuality, sorry. And when we were 16, when we were 16 or 17, we'd arrange to meet up, go to a gig or whatever. And she would say, I will stand on the left side of the entrance to the venue. And if I was 15 minutes late, she would have just gone in, not waited. She had this thing, she
Yeah,
wouldn't
and
wait.
you couldn't
These
text to say you were
days,
late.
yeah, and these days you don't even make a plan about where exactly to meet. I'll text you when I get there. Or like, I'll get there and go, right, I'm here, where
Yeah,
are
yeah,
you? And I have another friend that always used to be like, right, we'll meet you in the
yeah.
restaurant. We'd go out to dinner a lot. And she'd be like, right, I'll meet you in the restaurant. I'll be sat at the back. Come in, I'll be at the back. rather than just relying that you've got a phone on you, you can call them if anything comes up. So it's a convenience, but it's also
Yeah. Well, you had to be more reliable.
you did, or you had to
Yeah.
make sure you understood how to plan. Do you think young'uns now that have never lived without smartphones
Yeah.
don't have the same level of planning ability because they've got that device that they can rely on?
I completely think that. And
Interesting.
reliability, because you can pull out at the last minute. Me and my friends used to meet at a bus stop, and the buses used to get sick of us because they'd pull up and we're like, oh no, we're
We're
not
just
waiting for a
meeting.
bus.
Yeah,
This is where we hang out.
yeah. We had a bus stop when we were younger as well. We loved that bus stop.
Yeah, we all had a bus stop.
You turn up to it because maybe
Yeah,
there'd be
I need
someone
to go
there.
back to that bus stop.
Pilgrimage.
Yeah,
Well,
probably waiting for a bus though.
I think we should continue talking about this in our next episode. What do you say?
Yeah,
Yeah. And so
yeah,
on the
yeah, I agree.
notion of funny things people do, that we all seem to do without having ever had an instruction to do it, do comment on this post and this video if there's anything that comes to mind. We'd love to hear your stories. And we shall see you next week.
Absolutely.
Over and out.
Fantastic. Keep commenting, everyone. Thanks for your attention. Bye bye.